Okay. Hey, everybody, this is Nikki, and I am here with the Travel Collective today, and we are talking about surviving long flights. Let's just go around in the room and kind of introduce ourselves, and we can start with the first question. What is the longest flight you've ever taken? And I guess we could probably just go down the list and start with Cindy.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say you're not my computer.
No, totally fine. My name is Cindy Cohen, and I'm part of the Travel Collective. And I think my longest flight was Vietnam, which was just over 15 hours. So it was from LAX to Vietnam, and yeah, it was like a day. So I think that's my longest one.
What about you, April?
Yeah, my name's April, and I'm with the Travel Collective also. And I was thinking about this question the other day. I think the longest flight I've ever taken was from LAX to get to Venice, Italy. It just seemed like it was all day, and there was a switch in there. We were pretty wiped out by the time we got there. So,
yeah. How about you, Dan?
Hi, I'm Dan DeFancia. I'm the owner and innkeeper of the Willamette Valley Bed and Breakfast in Newburgh, Oregon, right in the heart of Oregon wine country. My longest flight is basically from the Northwest to Europe. So I went from Seattle to Berlin via Amsterdam layover, and then I went recently from Portland to Paris via Iceland layover.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
How about you, Michael?
Hi, my name is Michael Herst, and I am a traveler, and I participate in these conversations quite a bit because I love to travel. My longest flight actually was from Colorado to London. That was the first time I'd ever traveled overseas like that, and it was a little hard to get used to, and I learned a lot from that experience.
So where have you been, Linda? That's been really long.
I'm Linda. I'm from Syracuse, New York, so I always fly out of New York City. And and I take writers on trips, writing retreats, usually in beachside communities in the off season, so it's cheap. My longest trip, because I had relatives there, my longest trip was to Japan, and I think it was 16 hours. And between the time difference and the food and all of my relatives speaking Japanese, which I don't know a lick of, it was very, very disorienting.
I bet. So I am a travel author, for those of you who don't know, and my longest flight was actually to Scotland. We had a layover in London, and then it was like a 7-hour layover in London, and then we flew all the way into Scotland. So that was an extremely long flight. So it was, but it was worth every minute of it. So let's see. So the next question, let's see here. Do you sleep or try to stay busy on your flights? So you want to take that one, Linda?
You know, it really depends on whether or not I'm on a red eye. And I do a lot of red eyes because, especially too, coming from the East Coast, I try to sleep if I can. And I have to say, I am an Olympic gold medalist when it comes to sleep. So I can sleep through anything, noise, sound, the carts going up and down the aisle. So I tend to sleep, because I'll also say this, if I try to keep busy, depending on what I'm keeping busy with, I am prone to motion sickness. Not great for a traveler.
How about you, Michael, do you sleep on those flights?
I do not. We travel quite a bit to Maui. So on those particular flights, my wife sleeps. And any other long flight that we take, whether across the country, she'll do the same thing. She sleeps during the thing because she hates flying. And especially when we go to Hawaii, to Maui, she hates over the ocean. So she finds it easier for her to sleep. I enjoy the flight because I enjoy flying. So I look out the window and keep myself busy and see if I can figure out where we're at and play little games like that.
How about you, April?
It depends on the flight, I think, kind of like what Linda was saying. It's like if I'm going to Europe and just to get my clock reset, I'll try to do that and try to sleep, when it's appropriate. And then, and while you're in flight, sometimes they kind of start bringing the lights back up as you're getting closer to landing. And so to kind of reset yourself, it's a challenge, but I always try to sleep on those longer flights. If it's domestic, I always make sure I book myself a window seat. I just am enthralled with looking out the window. And even if I've brought myself a book and I've brought myself my notepad and I'm going to do puzzles or write or read, I find myself distracted looking out the window unless we're in a cloud bank. I just love looking out the window and seeing what's out there. It's so beautiful.
So if we travel together, I have to fight you for the window.
Yeah, exactly. That's so true. Yeah.
There'll be a big fight on the plane because
I know.
I need that window too. I mean, you can put the pillow up against it and look out and oversee. And yes. So how about, let's see here. Did I skip Dan? I feel like I skipped somebody or I didn't get somebody.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to share. I do not sleep on the plane because I can't. I wish I could. I wish I could have Linda's gold medal for sleeping because I would really enjoy it and help pass the time, but I just can't do it any longer. So I keep busy. Part of what Michael said, I like to keep track. Some of the flights have the air tracker on your screen so you can see exactly where you are. It gives you some landmarks and things like that. Otherwise, I try and watch a movie or listen to music just to pass the time, just so it doesn't seem like it's taken forever. I'm not a real good reader, so I might bring a magazine or two, but I won't read a book because I just can't pay attention that long. So I do whatever I can to occupy myself as best I can. And then if I have the opportunity to doze off, that's just like that's a bonus. That's like I just killed another however many minutes.
And what about you, Cindy?
I was going to say, that's how I am. I have a hard time sleeping on the plane for sure. If it's a long flight, like the flight to Vietnam, anything over maybe 8 or so hours, I try to force myself to sleep because I know that I'll be better, suited when I land. But, domestically, I almost never sleep on a domestic flight, even on red-eye flights. I can't. I'm either excited about where I'm going because I love to travel, so I'm, my brain is there, or I can't get comfortable. So it's not something I do. So I typically schedule my time. I literally plan out what I'm going to do for those hours. So I'm going to work on the book, and then I'm going to watch a movie, and then I shift and I'm going to have a snack so that I can kind of keep myself busy. And if I'm on a long flight, I might say I'm going to do some quiet time where I try to sleep, but most of the time it's just keeping myself busy and scheduling, when I'm going to eat. I try to reserve my snack for wait 3 hours before you open the snack, and then wait another 3 hours so that I have lots of things to do and keep myself busy. So especially on those flights that are over, 6 to 8 hours, because that is just, they're hard. Domestic flights that are 4 to 5 hours, you can do that. That's not too bad, but over that,
a couple shows on those domestic flights. You download a few of those to your tablet or something, and you're good to go. Those longer flights, the red eyes, I try so hard to sleep, but it's trying to get comfortable and stuff. But usually on those longer flights, you're trying to time change too, and so you got to try to adjust your body, because when I land in London or Scotland, I sure don't want to have to go to the hotel and sleep, and I don't want to be up at midnight. I would like to be, having my coffee down and when everybody else is awake, not when the whole world's asleep. So
exactly.
What are some of the challenges you have on long flights, like physical issues, boredom, sleeping, etc., things like that? Let's see here. We could start off with, how about Cindy?
Oh, I have a lower back problem. I have a herniated disc I did about 15 years ago, which I baby that on long flights. So that is definitely something that is a challenge. As long as I'm not having problems with it prior to the flight, if I get up often enough, I do okay. And that is something that I do. As soon as that seatbelt light goes off, I get up and walk around. I might find myself standing. I am that person that gets up as soon as we land. And I get up not because I want to get off the plane, but because I need to stand. And that's really important to me. And sometimes if I've been having trouble, I have to bring ice, or I get the flight attendant to give me ice, but I do have to nurse my back, or I can end up on a long flight with a real problem by the time I arrive from sitting in that cramped seat position for 6 or 8 hours. That's a real challenge for me anymore. It's what happens when we get old. So
How about you, April? Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
When you were little, you could just get on those seats and, it was
curl up in a little
easy to
ball and
fly.
go
Now,
sleep.
a little
exactly.
ball and sleep the 9 hours. And yeah. I want to go back to those days. How about you, April?
I think the biggest challenge on the long flights is just the whole going to the restroom. I have a thing. If it's a domestic flight, I try to like go to the restroom right before it boards, and then I'll hit the restroom as soon as it lands, and I'm usually good. And unless it's like a long flight, but it's those, when you're going to London or Europe, it's like, okay, when, trying to balance it out, like, you need to go because it's just too long, but I don't like to go too late in the flight and everyone else is going in there. Just, yeah, it's being prepared and mentally just going, okay, you got to go do it. That's I guess my biggest thing is using the restroom. And, since I like the window seat, then I have to, if my seatmates are
ask people.
sleeping, and then, so that's the other thing. Have they gone to sleep? How can I time this? Because I hate intruding on other people. I don't want to be that person that's like sits at the window and then gets up 5 times during the flight. I try not to be like that. So
Well, and you have to time it because if you're in bumpy or
Yes.
you hit turbulence and they put the seatbelt lights on, I mean, it's like one of those, I might not have to go really bad right now, but I better because, the captain said we might be coming into turbulence.
Right.
And that could put you in your seat for a couple hours on a
then
flight.
you're-
And then you're just at the mercy of being uncomfortable.
Right.
So
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Not a good feeling.
And because I have to get up all the time, I have to sleep. I have to sit in the aisle. I can't lean against the window, which is a huge problem for me. But if I do the window, which I'd love to do, I can't get up. So yeah, it's navigating, right? Where to sit, what to do based on what the challenges are.
How about you, Dan?
Sam, I'm an aisle seat person as well, mostly because I need to stand, I need to move. So
yeah,
I just can't sit still that long, and I'll almost feel like it's claustrophobic after a while. So need to stand up, stretch. Depending on the size of the aircraft, you can venture quite a ways, and there's some room. But otherwise, no. It's just that physical movement and getting some blood circulating so that I can feel like I'm still alive.
Yeah.
yes.
How about you, Michael?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Since I have a disability, I live in an aisle seat at now, and I have to get up a lot and have to stretch my legs and move my legs and things like that. So I find that to be the most challenging aspect, at least from a physical perspective, because if I have to get up and go to the restroom, sometimes you have to have my wife help me get up and things like that, which can cause an issue, I would say. But for the most part, that's pretty much my only real issue with that, just the physical aspect of it.
How about you, Linda?
I live in terror of turbulence because, as I told you earlier, motion sickness, it took me a long time to be a comfortable traveler. So I rely on GAB, G-A-B, an acronym, stands for ginger. I bring candied ginger on the plane. I also bring ginger tea packets just in case if it gets really bad, you can flag down an attendant and say, hey, can I have a cup of hot water? And then I'll have ginger tea. I also use aromatherapy, but I do something, it's called a nasal inhaler, and it's a little cotton wick that you put inside. It's like literally, it looks like a finger, but it's plastic. and you can put it in your nose because, a lot of times there are certain things you can't bring on because they would be disruptive to other people, but the nasal inhaler works very well. It's plastic. You can buy them and put your own essential oils in them. So I use that to calm down, particularly lavender and other things. And then finally, I know this sounds counterintuitive, but I'm also paranoid too that I will run out of power on my phone. And so I try to bring a book, because even though you'd think, well, if you're feeling motion sickness, why would you read a book? Because I'll bring a favorite book that I've practically memorized so that when I start to read it, I go off into my little headspace and then I'm no longer in the plane. So yeah, that's what I do. Ginger aromatherapy and a paperback book so I don't blow my batteries on my phone because all of my boarding passes are there. And then what do you do, right?
I was just going to say that your boarding passes and all your itinerary, and you don't want to be without a phone or an electrical device while you're trying to travel.
Yeah.
So those paperbacks are nice to have. So yeah, I'm kind of like the rest of you. Just I'm the first person to stand up, not like Cindy, not because I want off the flight. I'm not trying to rush everybody, but because I need to stand up and move.
Yes.
I've been stuffed in this seat for really long, and get me up and get me moving. One of the biggest physical issues I have faced was we'd gone to a trip in Mexico about 12 years ago, and I had ended up getting blood clots sometime during the trip, and the doctor said they could have been caused by the flying, by not getting up and moving. So one of the biggest things now is on those longer flights is looking at compression socks or getting up and moving, taking aspirin before those flights to keep my blood thin, things like that, so that you don't get that setting, because it's really not good, especially on those longer flights. You need to get up and walk those aisles and move around. I was telling my kids, they're like, well, I'm not old like you. Well, you still need to move that around. I wasn't old when I got the blood clots either, so get up and move. But
I'm not old
that's
like
kind
you.
of my get up and move, children. But really getting up and moving and getting up, moving around, and then trying to, when you're sleeping on those flights too, you know, using those face masks and your beautiful travel pillows and things like that, you know, so you can get comfortable, is kind of, you know, make that flight as comfortable as possible. So what is the best experience, and what airline was it with? Oh, I can't wait to hear this one. So let's start. We can start with, why don't we start with Michael?
We could do that. My best experience was, and April, I think April knows this about me. I spent about 4 years in a wheelchair, and before I got a bunch of operations to get fixed and rebuilt all over again. But during that time period, we've had bad experiences with a couple of different airlines in regard to my disability. The best experience I ever had was with Delta, believe it or not. When we booked with Delta in the first place, and I told them I needed a little extra assistance, they were there from the beginning. Everything was squared away for me right from the start. When I got there was a wheelchair waiting for me. There was somebody there to push me in it. They got me seated right away. They got me, I got to go on first because of that. I mean, I was special, but you know, I still got to go on first because of that. And, you know, they took really, really good care of me the whole trip. And then same thing on the way back. When they had us on the way back, they made sure my wife was seated next to me. They made sure I had an attendant when I needed it. And we had whatever we needed, we pretty much had. They upgraded us from regular seating, economy seating, to business class without any extra charge, which I thought was very nice. And this was a trip to Hawaii and back, and they did that twice for us. So my best experience was with Delta Airlines.
Good to know.
Awesome.
Right.
What about you, Linda?
I would say it was my first time on KLM. Like you, I went to Scotland, and it was 3 legs to this trip. And the final leg was on KLM, and I cried over the cheese sandwich. I couldn't believe that you could make such a good cheese sandwich and serve it on a plane. And I also loved all the graphics. So I folded all those little cardboard boxes and tucked them into my carry-on bag, because I'm such a geek about product and display. And I was amazed. And if I could fly KLM, only KLM, I would do it.
That's cool to know.
Yeah.
How about you, Dan?
You know, I've had a couple times where I was flying coach, and I happened to know one of the flight attendants was a personal friend, and one time I actually knew the pilot as well. So again, personal friends, but I couldn't get upgraded. There wasn't any space available, but so I sat in the back, and she brought me a first class meal and brought me cocktails, and everyone else was looking like, how come you get this and we don't? We were getting regular food. So it was a nice treat overall, but like I said, it wasn't so much the airline that I was on. It was more the people that are on, and it was just coincidence, just so happened to walked on and, hi, how you doing? And longtime friends. So it was fun.
How cool. How about you, April?
Oh wow. Well, I would say recently it was Southwest Airlines because again, I fell in Boston and messed up my wrist, so I had it in a cast. But they were super. I mean, I got to the Boston airport and I was going to switch, and my family wasn't. But again, they had someone, get me on the plane first. They made sure my dad could sit in the row with me, and then when that plane landed, even though my family needed to, just leave the plane, they had someone. I mean, they were super super friendly, and I think it was amazing, the crew, because both times it wasn't so much that I couldn't walk, but the fact that my backpack with my laptop with my professional cameras was so darn heavy, there was no way I could really lift it. So a couple times I just had to tell the crew, like, it's not that I can't walk to the walkway to get someone to escort me or have you put me in a wheelchair. I don't really need the wheelchair. It's the backpack that's just super heavy. And every single time someone was super, they're like, oh yeah, no problem. They picked up the backpack, they walked with me, they waited outside the restroom and got me to my next connection. But again, just, I think it's the people on some of these airlines, and, where they sat me when I had to wait, because I had quite a bit of a layover in Denver before I came home. And they put me right up close to the gentleman who was gate checking other people. And he just chatted with me the whole time. I mean, they were super, super friendly, super nice.
That's cool. How about you, Cindy? I know you've got a good one.
Well, I've like 3 or 4 things are rolling in my head. Was like, how do I answer this question?
I know.
But so I'm going to go with it's kind of a combination of Dan and April's, which is I used to fly to Seattle every other week. I did that for like 6 years from Los Angeles. It's a really short flight. It was a work thing. So I flew Alaska Airlines, which is what was they had multiple flights out of Burbank. And I think the best part about that was that we did do the same flights all the time. It was a work thing. I would be on the same flight with multiple coworkers. Sometimes didn't even know who was going to show up because we were all going up there for this. I worked for Washington Mutual. We had offices here in Los Angeles, and they have obviously offices in Seattle. But I think the thing that was cool was they got to know us, the flight attendants and the staff and the pilots. I mean, they recognized you. They knew you by name. They remembered who we were. They remembered what I drank. It was just like they knew who we were. And Alaska Airlines could not have been nicer. My coworkers were always surprised because I would just skate in like 2 minutes before the flight would take off, and they're like, they've been sitting there in the waiting room for an hour, and I'm like, no, they'll be fine. They know I'm coming. My name's on the list. I'm like, I'm a special member. So, it definitely was a lot of fun to fly that airline, and it was the people. It was definitely the staff for the airline that made the experience beautiful. Like I said, they didn't have to remember my name. They didn't have to, keep track of that. I did only fly every other week. It wasn't every day. And there were hundreds of us that did this. And I was just honored that, they kept track of that and made me feel special. So, yeah.
How cool.
Very
So,
cool.
yeah, I've been on from Delta and Southwest and Alaska. Actually, they've all been great lately. My best, though, was a trip from Denver, Colorado to London. And it was my first actual international trip. I was on a school trip, and they had overbooked the plane, and they needed 5 students to go from the back of the plane to first class. Again, they'll call me silly. I'll give up riding with friends to take that first class ticket. It was so cool because my dad says it broke me. Because I came back and never wanted to travel not first class again. It was like, yeah, I'm a first class traveler, Dad. They hand out like these warm washcloths to you when you're on the flight. And so United had done that, and they had bumped me going there, and then coming back, they actually had overbooked the flight again. And so they bumped people back up to the front. So I was able to ride first class both ways, which was like an extra special treat. And I mean, especially when you're on those longer flights, I can't even describe what first class is compared to the back of the plane, especially when there's a whole band class back in the back, and they're on their international, a lot of teenagers, so that was probably, I would say, probably the best flight experience I had, especially, kind of getting in. It gave me the travel bug to be in international travel. So, yeah. So anything else we should ask, or it was very educational. I really enjoyed talking to all of you.
How about pet peeves?
Oh, pet peeves. Yes. I have pet peeves. Oh, yeah. And I skipped it in my pet peeve. People putting their feet on my seat.
Yes, the
Yes.
Yes.
Do not do
Yes.
I
that,
mean,
people. And keep your
don't
shoes
do
on.
that.
Nobody wants to
Yep.
see your bare
No.
feet.
Yes.
I don't mind
And
socks, but
if you
bare
take your
feet.
shoes off, please put your socks on.
I
Yes.
I mean, just
know.
be respectful. I mean, and if you're walking down the aisle, please put your socks on. Those are
Yeah.
and the person who's playing their voice messages out loud and
Oh my
listening to their
God.
entertainment, please don't make the flight attendant come have to tell you to turn it down.
And
Those
don't
are
argue with
a
the
couple
flight
of my
attendant.
biggest
When the
ones.
flight attendant tells you to do something, say yes, ma'am, yes, sir, and do whatever they ask.
Yes.
They don't have
Oh,
to
yeah.
get off
Yes.
the plane and get rid of you.
Yeah, they're real strict. They're real strict nowadays. It's just like in an instant you could be your
Yeah.
life just changed
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
that perspective.
Well, I mean, it's got to be scary as a flight attendant, right? If they're not
Oh, I
listening to
know.
you, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're going to be on this 8-hour flight and this person's just going to say no. Like,
They're going to duct tape you to your seat and
Yes.
leave you there for a while.
that's
I
right.
know.
That's the story.
I know.
Yeah, it's kind
Well,
of
and
crazy.
I think one of the things that we need to keep in mind is they're there to actually, their job is to keep us safe during those
Yes.
flights.
Yeah.
I mean, well, they bring us drinks and they bring us food and things like that. Their ultimate job is to keep us as the travelers safe. And when you've got 200, 300, 400 people not listening to you or arguing with you, I mean, make these people's job easy. And,
Yeah.
you know, most
Yeah.
of them don't even start getting paid until the wheels come up on that airplane and they take off. So all that beginning and after time that they're doing and that landing and pre-prep, those men and women and people are not getting paid for us. So, I mean, be nice to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big pet peeve, just that we as travelers should just try to be responsible. I mean, if they say the bag size is X and, you know, everyone else wants to get their big bag in the overhead, keep your, you know, shove your darn purse or whatever you can under the seat in front of you until the whole plane is boarded and maybe there's space up there. But, you know, yeah, just be respectful and share the space. You see people that they shove all their stuff up there,
Yes.
their briefcase, their winter
Yeah.
coat, all of it, and then they just nicely plop
Sit down with
themselves
nothing else
down.
around them, yeah.
Right, right. And the next guy that's just now getting on the plane, you know, he's just trying to get his main suitcase up there. It's like, come on.
And then they're mad that their jacket got like shoved clear
Right,
in the back. And
yes.
it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, just bring all of your flexibility. And what I tell my kids, house rules. Like, you get in their plane, you follow their rules. You go to their house, you follow their rules. This is how it works. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with it.
Right.
Just try to be understanding. Because, you know, if you're making a fuss, it makes everyone around you uncomfortable. So it's really, I think that is definitely a pet peeve. Bare feet and
Yeah.
and belligerent pet travelers.
Yeah.
Travelers.
Mine is the one where they put their feet up on the seat behind you and they start kicking the
Oh.
seat.
Yes.
Kind of
The
a thing.
kicking. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when they bring the meals out and you know everybody's getting meals and you put your tray down and then the person in front of you puts their seat
Boom.
back.
Oh yeah.
Or they
Like this, and you're
jostle
going-
it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to
Yeah.
say, one of the things that I have learned to do, because I travel with people who are tall, my son is pretty tall and a few other folks, is I ask the person behind me before I lean my seat back. I always do that. I lean back and I'm like, do you mind if I lean my seat back? Because if you've got somebody 6 foot or taller in that seat and you lean back, you've just put their knees at their chest, like they can't
No.
move.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's really, I'm getting 2 inches, maybe, like you get just a little more.
Yeah.
So I try to be respectful that if, you know, sometimes it's okay. Sometimes they're like, oh God, please don't push that back.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the laptop on the tray, Michael, is a big deal for me. I'll put the laptop on the tray and then the person will slam the seat back because they can't get it. And my laptop will really like
Yeah.
flip forward.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Mine is with
Yeah, because you
tea.
probably work.
Yeah,
Do
I
you
do.
work when you
Yeah.
travel too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you were going to say something, Michael. What were you going to
I
say?
say I drink a lot of tea on my trips.
Oh, yeah.
That's just what I do. So I have hot water sitting on the tray most of the time. And when they do this, I have to reach up and try to grab the tea before they knock it off. So that's where it bugs me like immensely.
Yeah. It's just, it's being respectful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any
My-
other weird pet? Go ahead, Dan.
My pet peeve is people who are just inconsiderate about volume of anything, and oftentimes it's just their voice. It's like you're 3 rows away, and I can hear every word you're saying to the person that you're talking who is next to you.
Right.
all 9 of us or 12 of us or however many can hear you in my range don't want to be a part of your conversation, don't want to hear your life story. And it's like, I just can't get over that they have to talk that loud for typically it seems like the duration of the entire flight.
Yeah.
It's like
it's not for a minute or two. And then, and then somebody else mentioned the same about, electronics. Okay, well, man, turn it down. We're not all here for, we're all in shared space. You should, like you said, should be considerate of the others that are around you. But yeah, the volume of voices and machinery just drives me nuts.
reminds me of another movie, right? Star Trek, the long journey home, where Spock gets into it on the bus with the guy that was playing the music so loud. Everybody was going, turn it down, turn it down, turn it down. He turns it up. Spock runs over and does his little Spock thing, puts the guy to sleep and turns the music down. So we should all learn that little move.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, one of the things, like Dan was saying, when people are talking, you want to make sure that you're not sharing too much information. We have a tendency to get excited when we travel, and there's some safety things, especially talking to your neighbor and sharing too much travel information sometimes can be very dangerous. And, when you're on a long flight for 8 hours next to somebody, it feels like the person sitting next to you could become a really good friend, but yet you really not knowing, you want to be careful what you're kind of sharing and what you're telling.
Yeah,
I would agree with you. As a retired police sergeant, I would tell you that is a very important thing to do, because especially if you're young, you're a woman, that's something you need to pay attention to. I have daughters, and when they travel overseas, both to Italy and Greece, and it's a situation that I've always told them before: don't get too friendly with the people next to you. Don't think that everybody there is your friend. You need to be wary. Don't be rude. But at the same time, don't give all your information away. Don't tell them where you're staying.
Right.
Don't tell them where you're going. Just say, I'm going to visit Rome. I'm going to visit Greece. Don't say where in Greece, where in Rome, where your hotel is, or anything like that. I think it's important to keep that private. I agree with you.
Yeah. And it's not just for your physical safety, it's also for the safety of your belongings, because people know they can follow you. And to Dan's point, you could be sharing with somebody, even your sister or your, travel buddy, but people next to you, behind you, in front of you, they can hear all that as well. So you're in such close proximity, they're just listening and you're sharing. So that's a very good point, is watch what you share. Because like Dan said, you can hear it 3 aisles back sometimes.
Well, yeah.
Yep.
And I know where hotel she's going to be at, where she's going shopping tomorrow. I know where
I
know everything. What fun.
Awesome. Anything else we can think that we want to share with everybody?
No, I think we go ahead, Michael.
No, I really enjoyed all the information everybody shared with us today, talking about sharing, but always in a positive way. I want to thank each and every one of you for kind of bringing what you know and your knowledge, your experience to the table. And there's a thing that I'm going to learn, and I'm going to share them with my family as well, with regard to everything you guys said. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. Thanks everybody for joining us, and have fun traveling.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks everybody.